How's it going, everybody? In this video, I have some updates for you in regards to the Miller v. Becerra case, or what's known as the case that could potentially bring on the second Freedom Week. So a lot of you have been asking why this case got moved. And right now, we don't have a whole lot of information. We just have not only what the Firearm Policy Coalition updated on their website as far as that the hearing date got moved to March 19th of 2020. And we have the court docket. You can go to Court Listener, and I'll put a link to that down in the description, and also to the Firearms Policy Coalition link. We don't have a whole lot of information specifically of why it was moved. We just have the date in which it was moved. And so I'm going to give you my best guess, looking at what has gone on recently in the case of why the court date was moved. And then I'll give you what I believe the ramifications of this might be, or what is this signaling. So right now, when you look at the docket as far as Miller v. Becerra, all you see is it says notice, change of motion hearing, and then it lists the specific motions that are going to be heard, that were supposed to be heard on February 6th. And then it says motion hearing reset for the 3rd, 19/2020, which is March 19th of 2020. So a lot of people are asking, why is that? Why did the hearing date get moved? A lot of people are excited for this week, and now it gets pushed out till, March 19th. And a lot of people are like concerned about it. They're worried about what this potentially means, and there's not a whole lot of clarity about why this happened. And so I'm not gonna lie, I don't know the specifics of why the hearing date was moved. All I can do is give my best guess without the court giving us additional information. And what my best guess is I think it's primarily, it could be two things, but I do think it's one thing. So the first thing, which I think it is not, is there was a request to appear pro hoc vice. So what pro hoc vice is if you are not licensed in the state of California, you cannot appear in a court in the state of California unless you get authorization to appear pro hoc vice. And so that's what this application was. And what that is essentially, it's you say, I'm gonna appear through another individual who is licensed in the state of California. Essentially, they give you authority to come here and be present in front of the court. And so that was filed. I don't think that is the reason why the hearing actually got pushed back. I think it is another reason of actually why the hearing date got pushed back. And it's actually a little bit more of a significant reason why it got pushed back, and has a little bit more ramifications for this case. And so the reason why I actually think that the hearing date got pushed back is because there's two motions to file amicus briefs in this specific case. And so what an amicus brief is, essentially it's a friend of the court. That's the Latin word is amicus curiae. It's a friend of the court. And so it's a non-party individual writing a brief in support of one side or the other. In this case, Everytown for Gun Safety is writing a brief in support of the AG, in support of the Assault Weapons Control Act. And so one of them is actually not even a motion to file, it's a motion for order to file my amicus brief. And that is by Everytown for Gun Safety Support Fund. A lot of you guys know of them, you've heard of them. They do this all the time. They file amicus briefs saying that, the Second Amendment is horrible, we don't need guns, blah, 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 all that nonsense. If you want to read specifically what their amicus brief says, you can find that link in Firearms Policy Coalition's website, or you can go to Court Listener and they have the PDF you can download. I'm not going to go through that right now. If you guys want me to go through their amicus briefs, I can. I hate reading that type of stuff. It just frustrates me. But if you guys want to hear whatever arguments they had and they presented, I'll be more than happy to do that. It's just something that I don't choose to do unless there's interest to do that. So this one I don't think actually is the issue. It kind of is the issue, but there's actually a motion for order. So this is different from a motion to file for leave for an amicus brief. A motion for order, so essentially with this one is all the actual relevant parties have already decided that they are gonna not oppose Everytown for Gun Safety filing the amicus brief. And that's actually in their order. So right now they're just requesting that the court grant the order, which the court hasn't done. As far as what I can see on the docket, they haven't actually granted the order. So that might be why the hearing date got pushed back, because they have to grant the order, then the amicus brief has to be filed with the court, then the judge has to read the amicus brief and go over it. And so the one that might be the bigger issue is that there was a motion to leave to file an amicus curiae brief by Giffords Law Center to prevent gun violence. This actually isn't a motion to file the order. It doesn't seem like the relevant parties have agreed for them to file their brief. Instead, they are requesting leave And so the court will have to grant that request to leave. And this is a little bit different because Firearms Policy Coalition, the other plaintiffs, haven't actually said that they won't oppose this. So as a right, when someone files a motion, you have a right to oppose it, and then there's a reply that the other party has. So there's some dating requirements for that. It's something like 30 days to oppose, or I don't know the specific local rules or the Southern District rules for timing of this. But what happens is, since these were filed on January 24th, there probably wasn't a lot of time, especially since these haven't been granted yet and haven't been actually filed and entered into the court file. And so February 6th was coming up really soon. So I think what the court did is they pushed back the hearing date. They're going to grant the leave. They're going to grant the order of Everytown. They're going to grant the leave of, what is the other one? They're going to grant the leave for Giffords Law Center to file their amicus brief. Firearms Policy Coalition, the other plaintiffs in this case, can oppose it, and then there'll be a reply process. So essentially, they had to push back the date because of procedural stuff, is my best guess. I don't think it's because of the pro hoc vice issue. I think it's primarily because amicus briefs were filed and they had to push the hearing date back because it was coming up really soon and they couldn't meet all the procedural requirements with that specific date. So I think the judges pushed it back. So what do I think this means? Is this good? Is it bad? What are the impacts of this going to be? I think it's good and bad, and I'll explain why. It's always kind of bad when you have these interest groups like Everytown and the Giffords Law Center stepping in, writing amicus briefs. And I took a quick glance at the Everytown. It's nothing original. It's the same stuff that you would expect for them to argue, that the Assault Weapons Control Act is for the benefit of the public health and safety. It's something to prevent mass shootings is one of the headers I saw appear in that. So it wasn't anything I think unique. The Giffords Law Center tended to be more, I saw an attack on some of the declarations, things of that nature. So it's bad because you have these non-Second Amendment advocacy groups stepping in and offering additional evidence. I think Judge Benitez won't really listen to any of these things. He seems to be a very pro-Second Amendment judge, as we saw in the Duncan case. And so I don't think they'll sway him that much. The potential why I think it's good for us is because it pushed back the hearing to the 3rd and 19th. All the replies, oppositions for the preliminary injunction were actually due January 30th. So all those are in. Now we just are dealing with these amicus briefs and some formality stuff. So as far as what I think Judge Benitez is going to look at, he has it already, and he's had them since January 30th. The date for the hearing is now March 19th. I think this leads to a much greater potential for him to actually rule at the bench on March 19th. You have to look at it as he's had these, all the things I think he's going to look at as far as what's relevant since January 30th. He's going to sit on those for a month. He's going to be able to look at them, read them, decide what relevant questions he wants to ask the counsels when they appear for the hearing. I think he'll come in that day having fully read everything, got to digest everything, decide exactly how he wants to rule, and be able to do that on that day. Now, that doesn't mean he will actually do that, but I think it leads to a greater potential that actually on March 19th, we will get an actual ruling that day instead of the higher likelihood with February 6th, since it was an abbreviated schedule, things were happening fast. I think it was questionable if he would rule that day, and it was more likely that he would potentially push it out, decide exactly how he would want to rule, and then he was going to rule maybe a week later, a month later, who knows how long he was going to take to fully digest everything and decide how he would rule. But I think now, since he has everything, he gets to sit on it. The date's pushed back to March 19th. I think there's a greater likelihood that we will have a lot of clarity that day. If you guys find this video helpful, there's a lot of ways you guys can help support the channel. A lot of you guys have been awesome. You know, we're upwards of 7,000 subscribers now. You guys seem to really like these videos, and it takes a lot of time, effort, research, and just like I have to rush home, didn't even get to change, just sit down in front of the camera to get this out to you guys. So if you want to support the channel, there's some big ways you can do that. The first way is I just created a new Patreon, and I'll have links down in the description to the Patreon. And so the Patreon is just a good way if you want to support the channel. If you like what I'm doing, you want me to continue to make these videos, Patreon is one way you can do that. The second way you can support the channel is you can use any of the affiliate links down in the description. All those links, if you click on them either through Amazon or some of the other affiliates that are down there, I get a percentage of those cuts. One of the ones that's non-Amazon that's shown me a lot of support recently is Vigilant and Humble. I have a bunch of their sweaters. I actually paid all these for myself. They didn't give me anything. I do have an affiliate link through them, so if you do purchase any of the items, I get a percentage of it. It's nothing crazy, it's like 1%. But it's just a little something to help support the channel and validate to my wife why I'm doing this. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And never forget, a nation that draws a great distinction between its scholars and its warriors will have its laws written by cowards and its wars fought by fools.